is an edit from the 9/11 Commission where Bob Kerrey is addressing FBI Special Agent James Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald doesn't respond because it's a long statement by Kerrey. Let's see.
No, I'm on. Alert you at the beginning, this could end up being a 5-minute question because that's all I got. But Mr. Fitzgerald, you said in your statement something to the effect, as you know, UBL planned this years in advance. And you may have heard the staff statement 15 that described the nature of that planning earlier, and not just planning early, but what Bin Laden had been doing all the way through the 1990s. And one of the problems that I've got, and basically it's going to get to a yes or no question in the end, but one of the problems I've got is that all the stuff that we got in that staff statement 15, it's not new. It's new now that now we got 3,000 dead Americans. It's you know we're bringing to light things that we knew long ago, and I've been making the case unsuccessfely with Clinton and Bush administration officials that we had cause to go after Bin Laden in Afghanistan much more aggressively than we did. And the answer has been consistent from both Clinton and Bush administration officials. No, until 9/11, we simply wouldn't have had the American people behind us. And my belief is it's because we didn't tell the American people who Bin Laden was and what he was doing.
Right.
So I've prepared 3 briefings, and I'm just going to give you the first one.
Well, it's not, look, you know, there's a lot of questions and answers here, right? Because we can only know what is presented to the public in form of documentary evidence, files and documents that are unclassified. And that's coming from the intelligence agencies whose main goal is to collect intelligence. That's what they do. And they disseminate that intelligence willfully, or they hoard it. And in the case of 9/11, they hoarded it more than they disseminated it. The important stuff anyway, right? It's not like they didn't share any information. They shared information, but not the stuff that could have stopped it. And the question is why? And these commissions, you know, 9/11 Commission, Joint Inquiry, they're for show. They didn't hold anybody accountable anyway. Nobody got fired or anything. Now, regarding Osama Bin Laden and Al-Qaeda, he's right, Kerry, in that this is not new. We've known for years what this guy was about, and we let him become the prominent figure in the terrorist world for years, when we could have just assassinated him while he was living in the Sudan in 1992-93. The CIA could have, because according to legendary field analyst Billy Waugh, who was also responsible for the capture of another notable terrorist named Carlos the Jackal, him and Cofer Black, they captured him, that Billy Waugh reported back to his base station in Khartoum saying that, oh, I jogged next to his home in Khartoum. I could just shoot him. Because he would jog past Bin Laden and his bodyguards and stuff like that. That's 1992-93. And the CIA were on Bin Laden for a while, probably even in the Afghan-Soviet War during the 80s.
Which is February 1997. There's a second one in February 99. You understand, by 99, we know that not only has he done the East African Embassy bombing, we know he's in the United States because we arrest 2 al-Qaeda members, one in Texas, one in California, who are part of the East African Embassy effort. And we heard earlier from your namesake, Mr. Fitzgerald, who said that we knew as well that they were very good at forging visa and passports. Didn't do anything about it, but we knew that they were very good at forging visa and passports. So here's what we have in February 97. We have a comprehensive analysis done by the Counter-Terrorism Center, which never saw the light of day, of who Bin Laden was, and I got about 2 pages describing who he is. And we start by saying, we told you in 1995 in our National Intelligence Estimate that he was a financier of terrorism. We have information now that tell you that he's much more than a financier of terrorism.
Now, this again, this is all true. So what happened was that the FBI in the mid '90s, after the 1993 World Trade Center bombings, they were hearing about Osama bin Laden, right? Because he returns to Afghanistan in 1996. At this time, he's in the Sudan, and we had the Mogadishu attacks on the U.S. Special Forces in I believe it was 93, 94. Which, by the way, at the same time, you had a faction of leader named Mohammed Farah Aidid, who the U.S. Special Forces were trying to capture, the biggest warlord down there, who was taking United Nations aid and taking the food away, like the food and from the residents, and they were killing all dissidents to this group, which the Sudan was under civil war. Bin Laden actually used one of his trainers, military trainers, Ali Muhammad. Now, if you've heard that name before, he was a triple spy for the CIA, the FBI, and Osama bin Laden. And he was also an associate of the blind Sheikh Omar Abdel Rahman, the Egyptian radical who was arrested for his part in the landmarks plot. Who's also given a U.S. Embassy application pass by CIA, acting as embassy consular officers in 1990. So it's not like the intelligence agencies didn't know who these people are. They've been knowing them for years. Whether they shared that data with the FBI and the counterterrorism unit, well, they didn't have a Bin Laden unit until 1999, New York, right? And you have the I-49 unit. That's John O'Neill. But John O'Neill, who's the most experienced out of them, besides probably Frank Pellegrino or Jack Clunan, Dan Coleman, and all those guys are legendary counterterrorism office agents. And some of them became part of John O'Neill's I-49 unit. And, the Bin Laden unit of the FBI didn't start until after 9/9. This is what Kerry's addressing, okay? They're saying, hey, we should have gave this guy attention in the mid-1990s. And the information he's presenting is known to the intelligence community. But what he doesn't know at this time is that information was never shared with the FBI.
Something, by the way, that we didn't get into our heads until, I think, 1999. So by February 97, we knew that he was the head of this al-Qaeda organization and could have provided chapter and verse of what he was attempting to do. He had, by February 97, he had already had his first fatwa against.
Because New York only had a joint terrorism task force, okay? They didn't have a radical fundamentalist unit dedicated to Bin Laden and al-Qaeda. They didn't have the resources for it either. This is the reason why they didn't have many Arab linguists. That's why Ali Soufan, author of the Black Banners, he, an FBI agent who interviewed Abu Zubaydah, I think he was the only Arab linguist in New York.
People of the United States of America describing us as the head of the snake. You heard all the stuff in staff statement number 15, but here's the punchline in my view. Because I think if the American people would have heard this, not only would they have said, we got to do something about this, but Congress would have sprung into action in a much different way than it did. Let me go through, I just got 5 things. We said, we now know Bin Laden has done these. We have reason to believe that he's responsible for a December 1992 truck bombing attack on 2 hotels in the Yemen port of Aden. It killed 2 Australians, didn't kill any Americans, although it was hotels used by Americans, and that was his.
That's right. Now, a lot of people don't know about this incident. I might do a video on this too. That's the very first terrorist attack that Bin Laden attacked a U.S. building. It's the first one, al-Qaeda. The first terrorist attack on a U.S. building was in Yemen.
Target. Secondly, we know that he sent weapons and trainers down to Mogadishu. Now, we can't be certain.
That's right. And, like I said before, that comes from the testimony of Ali Muhammad, who was debriefed in 2001 when he was arrested in the United States by the FBI. and also for his links with the 1998 East Africa bombings, in which the intelligence community, especially I think the CIA in Israel, Mossad had information about, and also, by the way, I have to state this as well. The I want to say it was the Kenya ambassador to the U.S., and I forgot her name, where she actually said months in advance that the building was, we need better security for the building because we have intelligence reports about it being a target for its attack, and she was a conspiracy theorist.
He killed those 18 Rangers in the Battle of Mogadishu on October 3rd and 4th.
I forgot about that. Yeah, that comes from the testimony of Ali Muhammad as well as was from the briefing of Ali Muhammad that he went down there and trained some of those people. Abu Ubaidah al-Banshari, who was the first al-Qaeda military commander. They both were training those rebels in how to use rocket-propelled grenades, because those rocket RPGs they came from, well, they came from the CIA in Operation Cyclone when they gave RPGs and Stinger missiles to who? The Mujahideen. And some of those weapons fell into the hands of who? The Arabs, Al-Qaeda.
But he celebrated it afterwards, and he sent trainers down there, and he sent weapons down there. And I guarantee if it's in the United States
That's
of
what they
America,
did with the helicopters. You know, Black Hawk Down, they shot down those RPGs and Stinger missiles, right? And that came from Afghanistan.
we'd have brought him to trial. I don't need any more than that.
That's right.
That he wasn't there, that didn't direct it, is almost irrelevant. I think Americans would have been outraged. And I think they would have said, we've got to go after this guy in some sense.
Hang on, so far. Look, if this information was known early 1990s, could 9/11 been prevented? We probably would have had stricter monitoring of this guy starting in the early 90s.
Significant way. Thirdly, we intercepted the Bajinka plot. He was trying to do what? He was going, his people were going to attempt to blow up.
Yeah, this is where Kerrey, he doesn't know any better, right? Because at this time, it's 2004, and he doesn't realize that Ramzi Youssef had never met Osama Bin Laden. And that comes from Youssef's own testimony, and Bin Laden as well in later statements. But he does praise the attacks. There are separate cells. You have these Baluchi clan of Ramzi Youssef, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, Jamal bin Khalifa, Zaid Mohammed, the brother, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. They didn't have any bayat or loyalty to Bin Laden and Al-Qaeda. They were separate. It wasn't until, I think it was late 2000 where Khalid Sheikh Mohammed swore bayat to Bin Laden. He was actually a freelance opportunist, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, because he didn't like taking orders. He actually liked independency.
U.S. aircraft, airplanes. He was going to use
He's
airplanes.
right. Again, he's right. This is Bajinka plot. This is the blueprints for 9/11, right? The idea of using planes as weapons. And that debriefment came from Abdul Hakim Murad, who's a Philippine terrorist, an associate of Osama bin Laden. He was captured trying to go back for the laptop that was in a hotel room, which was smoking because they were building bombs in the hotel room. And they left the laptop up there. He went to go get it. And, all that, police, firemen were there. And this was in the Philippines. And he got captured. And they decrypted what was in the laptop. And they found out that there was this international terrorist operation involving the bombing of 12 airplanes over the Pacific and having a sleeper cell inside the United States waiting on orders to hijack the airplane and crash them into like 10 American targets. One of them was CIA Langley in Virginia. The others, I think, was the Sears Tower, World Trade Center, the Pentagon, the White House, the Golden Gate Bridge. So yeah, there was a number of targets. That's where the idea came from. And allegedly, if we believe Khalid Sheikh Mohammed's testimony, which I would tell you to take with a really huge grain of salt, like a brick, and if you want to believe that he told Bin Laden about the 9/11 operation, it came from the
As a weapon. In this case, he's going to blow him up. And
this is known to the FBI, by the way, because the Philippines investigators gave it to the FBI in 1996. The debriefing of Abdul Hakim Murad. What they did with it, Nothing.
I think it would have set alarm bells off if the Congress had
Yeah.
heard that. I think they would have done some scenario analysis that was never done. It's one of the things that we have criticized the CTC for not doing. We also, fourthly, we got a car bomb in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Again, we don't have absolute evidence that he did it, but he sent explosives there. He indicated he wanted to kill Americans in Saudi Arabia. And last, Khobar Towers, though we believe, again, we don't have absolute evidence, he said he wanted to kill Americans in Saudi Arabia. It's likely that his explosives were involved in some...
Actually, he was heard by the NSA on a phone that the NSA was tracking, the satellite phone that I talk about, talking with Ayman al-Zawahiri, the emir, the second in command of Al-Qaeda, and co-leader of the Egyptian Islamic Jihad, the Egyptian radical cell. And they're praising the attacks. And it's Ayman al-Zawahiri who's heard congratulating Khobar Towers. Meanwhile, the Saudis intelligence ring, the GID, the General Intelligence Directorate, or the Mahbeth, right? They impeded the FBI from doing a proper investigation into bombing. And they grounded up these people, they're forced to confess, and they execute them right away and say, oh, the investigation's over. And FBI Director Louis Freeh said, and he's friends with the leader of the head of the GID, Prince Turki bin Faisal. And so he shuts down the investigation.
way, shape, or form.
The reason why I have no idea why we're allied with the Saudi Arabians, but I mean, it's obvious. We regulate the oil.
We have all of this. And by 98, we have an awful lot more. By 2001, it's even more. And I mean, I just say to you, I mean, the question is, have you guys got this fixed? I mean, have you got it to a point where you can process all this stuff? As I said earlier, we'd have been better off sending Mr. Fitzgerald down to brief the president in Crawford, Texas on the 6th of August.
Oh, yeah.
His details and his information was a lot more coherent and persuasive and understandable than what the CIA delivered in the form of their August 6th PDB. So I don't understand why this information wasn't delivered more clearly, and
right? We can't speculate and use it as a form of evidence. I'm not that it was
And I'm worried that failing to acknowledge it wasn't delivered clear enough, failing to acknowledge that a mistake was made here, we might still be doing the same thing and delivering excellent testimony and excellent, and I appreciate, you know, I probably should be saying this to George Tenet and his number two, who, by the way, when I asked him this, said the National Intelligence Estimate isn't a very good place to put information about terrorism, which is a ridiculous statement to make. So my time is up. I guess I have no time left for you to answer anything that I've said, but I announced I was going to do a 5-minute statement because, frankly, I don't see before me the people that I would hold responsible for this, and I don't think it's fair of me to bore in on you and ask you why you didn't do it all this, especially somebody who was getting out of Quantico at the time this whole thing was coming to a conclusion. So I believe that we missed a tremendous opportunity very early in this game to inform the Congress, inform the American people who Bin Laden was, what he was doing, what he had done, and as a consequence, I think we simply didn't rally.